Welcome. Welcome to another really interesting discussion. I'll hold on a couple of minutes just to make sure that we're connected and everything's working. Okay. My name's Yoni Ejo, and I'm an adopter and an adopted person, and I'm also an adoption coach, and I have great pleasure in welcoming Beckie to our discussion. So, if Beckie, you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Beckie. I am a children's wellbeing mentor, and I also teach yoga and meditation for children and for adults.
Brilliant. And I know you've posted quite a bit in the Facebook group that we have and done some sessions for us. So thank you. We're booked in to see you again in a couple of weeks, which we'll talk about. But I was just curious, Beckie, how you came into your interest in yoga.
Yeah, so I've been working with children for well over 20 years now in loads of different capacities. I've been a primary school teacher, and I've worked in out of school care and in early years settings and all sorts of different variety of places of working with children. And my own yoga journey started about 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. And quite honestly, my life was quite chaotic at that time. I had quite a lot of things going on personally. I was dealing with some trauma at the time, probably still am to a certain extent, but things were quite challenging for me back then. And I found yoga, and I discovered the incredible benefits of a yogic practice. And by yogic practice, I don't mean just kind of twisting yourself into funny postures and, you know, making your body into strange, unusual shapes. Although at the time that was a big draw for me. At the time, I really enjoyed the very physical aspect of yoga. But as my practice went on and I began to understand more about the spiritual side and the side of kind of going inwards, connecting with nature, connecting with the rhythm of the universe and the pulse of life, and, you know, all of these kinds of incredible benefits that you can achieve by becoming calmer, becoming more mindful. It just made me feel so much better, and I had times where I was practicing yoga regularly, as in the physical postures, and times where I wasn't, and I knew that I felt better when I practiced regularly. And so as I went on, I was learning more and more and kind of incorporating the philosophy into my daily life, and it just, it was a natural progression for me to move into children's yoga, because, you know, I've worked with kids all my life. I love working with kids, and I know through my work with kids how stressful life can be, how many expectations we have on children in the family and in school. And I feel like yoga really does something to counteract some of that stress and some of that pressure. And my mission is to help children to develop these techniques, and to have this kind of toolbox of things that they can do to help them manage stressful situations in a way that is helpful for them.
I know, obviously, the people who follow me have got an interest in adoption or fostering, and children in care have so much trauma and change and uncertainty to deal with. I can imagine that learning some of those techniques would really benefit young people.
Yeah, I mean, any young people who are having experiencing specific traumas, or, as you say, uncertainty and change, and, you know, all children have, and all adults have experienced such a huge amount of uncertainty and change over the last 18 months. But the children and families that you're working with definitely have an added layer of that. And, you know, I'm sure there's a spectrum of how much trauma and how much change these families have experienced. But yeah, I would say without a doubt these practices will be really helpful.
Do you think, because a lot of people, like you say, don't fully get a picture of yoga and how it is, and sort of feel like perhaps you have to be really fit and thin and supple to do it. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean that's a massive misconception for yoga in the West, and it's really sad in a way that the Western approach to yoga has been it's been stripped away of its depth, you know, and we're taught that kind of 20-something white skinny women standing on one finger, you know, is the image that we have of yoga. And it's really, really sad. If you go back to the roots of yoga, I mean, I did my adult yoga training in India. I visited India 7 or 8 times over the last 8 years or so, and you know, have a really deep connection with the country and with the practices and the teachings that I've been lucky enough to have shared with me by incredible yogis. And you know, the older generation in terms of their yoga are so respected, you know, like it's not about bending yourself into funny shapes. It's a much deeper knowledge than that. And I think it's time now that the West started to, and it is happening. People are beginning to, and you know, I'm not saying that's across the board. There are communities of people who do go deeper into yoga practice, but I think the mainstream preconception, the mainstream idea is that you have to be thin and young and as you say, supple and flexible, and it's just not the case. You know, you need to find the right class. So you know, there's classes that I would find, lots of classes that I would find very challenging. The type of yoga that I teach these days is for adults, is very gentle, and it's much more about creating that connection between awareness and movement and breath. And you know, and it should all be, it shouldn't be painful, it shouldn't be too challenging. So just about gently increasing your strength and your flexibility and balance, but in a very gentle way. And it's body, mind and soul.
So do you think following or starting with yoga can have a wider impact on maybe a family who start it together, which or a parent and carer who's doing it with their child?
Yeah, I mean, I've had direct experience of that. A few years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to teach a family yoga class in person a couple of years back, and it was so beautiful. And actually we did have one family with a child that they had adopted, and the child did have some quite significant trauma, and they had such a chance to really create connection. And all families who have done the yoga class with me have said how it's so lovely to be able to do something with their child, because so often we send our children off to swimming classes and tennis classes and you know all the classes, and parents are kind of sat on the side, or they go off to have a coffee or whatever it is, or they pick them up after the class because it's straight after school, or you know, but there's not that many opportunities to actually take part in a class with your child and really develop a deeper connection and experience something together. And so yeah, I would say that family yoga classes are a really beautiful way to create connection and to experience something that's really beneficial for the whole family.
That sounds lovely. And I'm just thinking there's quite a lot of parallels between that and the course that Keely and I are doing around relationship-based play, which is child-led play together and building connections and you know, spending quality time doing something that you share and enjoy. So
and I would say that
family
family yoga, it doesn't need to be a rigid activity. Allow the child to lead the session. Once you know a few yoga postures, once your child knows a few yoga postures, they will get down on the mats and they will show you what they can do, and they can lead the session. It doesn't need to be a very structured, rigid activity. It can really be playful and enjoyable.
So what do you think has sort of informed your yoga work? Because I know you were also you were a primary school teacher and work with children. Do you think there are things that sort of you've brought into your new or changed career from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of been invaluable because I've got a really good knowledge of children's development and children's learning. That's been a focus for me since years back when I was studying at college and at university. I've got a solid understanding of child development, child psychology, and how children learn. And so one of the things that I make sure that I do is I bring in elements of the curriculum into what I'm teaching for children's yoga. So, for example, especially with the early years, we talk about colours, we talk about shapes, we talk about numbers, we have positional language. We learn about the world around us through our classes. So, for instance, this week the class was based on a magic carpet ride, and we went all over the world to different countries, exploring the animals that we found in different countries. And so that the children are learning so much in this really active, fun, playful environment. And so I would say that my previous experience gives me a really good grounding for making my classes really impactful.
Yeah, I apologize, I don't remember her name, but I know you were having a conversation about education, and you made a point that I thought was really interesting and quite pertinent to our viewers, was that a lot of the curriculum is sort of trying to get children to learn at a stage that is beyond what would be expected at that age. And I just wondered whether you'd talk a little bit more about that, because it's so pertinent to adopters and foster carers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a slightly challenging relationship with the education system. I've got to be honest about that. I feel like it's very rigid in this country. And I personally, I always taught early years. I have got lots of experience teaching older children as a supply role and through my yoga and things like that. But as a classroom teacher where I had a permanent job, I always taught nursery and reception. And my biggest reason for that was because I love watching children learn through play. And you have the greatest amount of freedom as an early years teacher. The moment children step into year one, and increasingly even in reception class, the curriculum is very rigid, and in most schools, so I can't all schools, I'm sure there are schools that are doing absolutely wonderful things for all their children, but I would say that in my experience, in the majority of schools that I've worked in, I have found it very challenging, the expectations of not only the content of the curriculum, because I do believe we should extend children's learning. I do believe that we should help children to flourish in their learning, but the style of learning. Children, in my opinion, are sitting down too much in a day. They are expected to take in incredible amounts of information and to perform at a really high level consistently throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the term. And quite frankly, I think it's unattainable for a vast amount of the children that we have. And if we look to Scandinavian countries, for instance, they start their formal schooling much later, generally between 6 and 7 years old. We have kids sitting at desks at 4, and that is a huge difference. And at 6 and 7 years old, these kids have now had 3 and 4 years of almost completely play-based learning that's initiated by them. And by 9 years old, they're ahead of our kids. And
that's interesting, isn't it?
you know, that's the truth of the matter, you know. And so it's what worries me is that we have a lot of people in government, a lot of people in education policy who don't really understand child development, and who don't really understand that just because a child can do something doesn't mean it's good for them, you know. And we're not acknowledging, like, the families that you're supporting, who, as we've mentioned, have specific traumas. We're not able to meet the needs of those children who, you know, a child can't come into school and be expected to learn 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, when they're not feeling emotionally stable. You know, these kids need play, and they need love. And another big issue for me is class size. I think that just a group of 30 children is just too many, and it's not possible to meet the needs of every child in that group. And so there's always a few children who do brilliantly at school, but there's a lot of children, in my opinion, whose potential is sadly not fulfilled because the schooling system just doesn't suit them, and there's no flexibility in that. And as budgets are cut further, there's less school staff around, there's less opportunities for nurture groups and breakout groups, and as we have more and more children, the spaces in schools are full. There's no place to take children out for smaller groups. You know, there's just and the curriculum sucks some of the joy out of learning, sadly. So yeah, that's my rant about curriculum in education. You did ask.
No, I think I am sure that a lot of people will sort of agree with you, but also I think the system tells the child that they're the one that's out of place, not that what they're being asked to do isn't what they should be asked to do, or, you know, like you say, if they've got experiences of loss or change, or they're just anxious, how can you then expect them to concentrate on education? Because
you have to be ready to learn. You have to be emotionally ready to learn, and our system doesn't allow for children who are not. And you know, and often these children are labelled as, and I saw a post about this recently about like school refusal and things like that, you know, and the children are then labelled as being challenging and being difficult and not complying, you know. And these kids, their behaviour is not based. They're not refusing to do something. They physically can't do it because they are anxious or because they are worried, and they're not making a choice to be difficult or to be challenging or to refuse to go to school. They just need something different. They need some love and some time, and you know, we can't just put kids into boxes like that.
No, and we're in the relationship-based play course. We were having a sort of similar conversation, because I think the messages that one student had in the course had made her sort of reevaluate children's relationship with school, and actually to think that maybe they were trying to push the children into a mold which was never going to work for them, and they were never going to flourish in, and actually that there perhaps were other options that it opened, that thought process opened up, and so the family are now going to go travelling, and
amazing.
They'll you know, have such an amazing time.
That's given me tingles. Like, I literally just got all over tingles hearing that. And there are other ways to educate your child. And I'm not saying, you know, that everyone should just pull their kid out of school, but there are other options, and success for one child and achievement for one child doesn't look the same as success and achievement for another child. And by keep trying to squash a child in a box or fit them into a mold, essentially that's not like they might learn to conform, they might learn to be what we are asking them to be, but that's not who they are. And it's going to be difficult down the line. Further down the line, there will be problems with that.
And I'm sort of, I can see common sort of links in so many areas, but talking to a lot of particularly women entrepreneurs who, in the whole process of building a business, have to be really understanding of themselves and self-knowledge, and actually how much they have to almost unpick of what they've learned in earlier years, and yet we're still going through this system where we tell people they've got to be something that they're not, and then as an adult they have to unlearn all of the messages that they've told them to find out who they really are. And
this is exactly what my work is about. This is like this. You've literally just described the exact reason why I do what I do. And that is because I look around me and I see, and I'm one of these people myself who has had to unpick all these stories, all these beliefs, all these ideas about who I am, what I can expect from the world, what the world can expect from me, and what behaviors are acceptable as a woman, as you know, and how I've been conditioned, and I look around me and I see so many incredible people doing the same work. And so the work that I do with children is to help them to not have to do this work when they're older, so that they're able to be true to themselves, so that they know that their voice is important, that they have a potential for incredible impact on the world, and try to help children, to support them in not necessarily feeling like they have to conform with what their friends are doing, you know, especially kind of primary to secondary transition time, when peer pressure can become really intense, you know, and you just want to fit in, you want to be the same as everyone else, and so you give up things that maybe you're passionate about because it's not cool, or you know, whatever it is. And you know, that brings us on to consent and teaching children when they can say what's okay for them and what isn't. And I think that is a conversation that starts really much younger than we think it does, you know. So and so that's exactly my work, is to try and put all these coaches that are helping us to sort ourselves out when we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond. The aim is to put in a generation or two, that to put them all out of business, because we've done all the work as in childhood.
Right.
It's a big vision.
Absolutely, but it's so important. And do you know what? If you made change, half a dozen people could potentially change the world, couldn't it? I think that the other message is that you can do something very small, what feels like very small, or say something really positive that can change the trajectory of somebody's life. And you know, you talk about successful people often will say, I remember this one conversation, this person said, I was just listening to Tiffany Haddish, who the Black American comedian, and she was talking about her period of time when she was in care, and her social worker encouraged her to go to comedy clubs. And that completely opened up. And prior to that, she thought she was bad, she was ugly, she was stupid. But exposing her to this as a positive, and her personality as a positive, just opened the world to her. And now, you know,
and I can imagine that being the class joker probably didn't go down too well at school. You know, but when you find the right outlet for this incredible talent, and that's what it is, you know, this gift, then as you say, you know, it can change the world. And this is the beautiful thing about working with children as well, is that if we teach one child, they take it home to their families, they role model it to their classmates. You know, so it has this incredible ripple effect. And you mentioned changing the world, and I truly believe that if more children are able to access this kind of work when they're children, that in a generation or two, you know, politicians, leaders, you know, if people were happier in themselves, had a better sense of kindness and compassion for themselves and for other people, would be in a very different situation right now. So yeah, big impact.
Wow. Absolutely. We've got a lot to do.
Yeah, we have, but we've got to start somewhere. You know, we've got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important, and you do it step by step, don't you? So you take one step at a time. So tell me how people who've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have
it's been
can
wonderful.
go further with you and sort of work with you in different ways.
So my Facebook group is called Shine Brightly with Beckie. All the work that I do with kids is based around shining brightly and inspiring them to be the most joyful and truthful expressions of themselves. You can find me at Shine Brightly with Beckie on Facebook. You can book classes through my website, which is www.thebhumiyoga.com, and Bhumi is BHUMI. It means earth. It was the name given to me by my Indian teacher, and it was comes from my Vedic astrology chart. So it means earth. It's a very kind of name that I feel very connected to. So I've used it in my work. So yeah, people can find me on Facebook at my group. They can find me on Instagram at The Bhumi Yoga, and they can book classes through my website.
Right, and I believe you've got is it a course coming up for adults?
Yes, I do. Yeah, really exciting course actually in the summer. This is a program that I actually wrote last year, and I've been kind of holding on to it, thinking like, when is the right time to kind of bring this into the world? And I've decided that August is the right time. It suddenly came to me. So on the 5th, the 12th and the 19th of August, so it's a 3-week course. It's called Cultivating Inner Peace, and it is a yoga-based course, but there is no challenging postures at all. Everybody is so welcome to this course. It is all about relaxation. It's all about mindfulness, becoming calm, it's going to be a workshop style class. So it'll be 3 classes of an hour and a half long. It's workshop style, so it's not going to be like a kind of smooth progression through a class. There's going to be stopping and talking and trying different techniques and opportunity to write notes. And we're going to do some breath work. We're going to do some other relaxation techniques. We're going to do a little bit of EFT tapping. We're going to do some restorative yoga postures. We're even going to do a little bit of self massage. So and the classes are available throughout the 3 weeks, so you don't have to be able to turn up live. If getting kids to bed for 7:30 is a challenge, these classes are available to access throughout the time. And there's also going to be a 10-minute video available each week for you to practice each day, or 3 times a week, or however many times you can squeeze it in, and lots of tips about how you can find peace in a few seconds. So there's things that you can just put in through your day to help you to manage anxiety, worries, stress, tension, all of those sorts of things. And as a nice surprise for you, I would love to offer anybody who comes through your group a further discount. So at the moment it's on an early bird offer of £47 for the whole thing, and I would like to offer your guys the whole thing for £33. So,
oh wow, thank you.
So yeah, anybody who comes through, there'll be I'll create a code on the website. I guess it will be AAFC to let them know that it's your guys. And I'd love to welcome some of your families.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting and a great conversation. And I also look forward to you doing a session for us on the activity week at the end of July, and your session is on the 30th of July, at 11:30. So look forward to that as well.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care and
Bye.
see you all soon. Bye.